ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time to bring in some Purple Haze with Uncle Omar as I answer your family law questions. And by the way, we are in talks right now with potential sponsors for this show. But as a part of that, we're thinking about opening up the lines, perhaps on a Patreon, perhaps on other things. But for right now, it's completely free. If you have scenarios or situations that you want me to speak on and give you my family law perspective, give you some advice from a family law attorney on your personal situation, then DM me. I would say on Instagram, but my Instagram got hacked. And so I don't know what's going on with it. I'm trying to recover it. But for right now, contact me on TikTok and leave me in the DMs the situation that you want me to analyze and explore. And we will do that on a subsequent episode of Purple Haze with Omar Serrano. I don't know if it's good. Hey, Dominic, what are we calling this segment now? Is it Purple Haze with Omar, or is it Uncle Omar, or is it Family Law After Dark? What are we doing with this segment?
Family Law After Dark.
Hey, Chris, what do you think? Family Law After Dark? Is that the winner?
I mean, I mean, if you want to do Purple Haze, it's like, okay, I'll smoke a joint with my attorney. Sure. I mean, it's up to
you. Well, I'm in favor of the purple, the Family Law After Dark. I pitched that to Eliana like a year ago, and we haven't really done anything about it until a few weeks ago. So this first inquiry comes to us, and they're looking for post-divorce advice and plans for the future. And so, Chris, I'm coming at this from a family law attorney perspective, and you could just come at it with your layperson's perspective. Whatever you have to say, whatever your opinions are fully welcomed. But this is what they have to say. So, still very fresh, and I'm still very sad, but I have to plan for my future and my kids' future. I'm living in my ex-father-in-law's house with my son. Him and I are going to work up a contract allowing me and my son to stay here until he is 10, about 2 years. Or I guess for about 2 years. So I guess her son is 8 years old and she wants to be there for a couple of years. Fine. So obviously I want to save every last penny, but should I look ahead with plans to buy my own place or continue to rent? I really don't want to rent for the rest of my life, and I want to leave my son with something when I die, and any advice would be really appreciated. Well, young lady, I would advise you that if you have the opportunity or the ability to do so, purchasing is a lot better than renting if you can pull it off. I would also caution you that you are living, the idea of you coming into a contractual agreement with your father-in-law, the father of your ex-husband, is a little disconcerting. And I'm not sure the enforceability of it all, unless he's just strictly having you sign a lease where you're going to be here month to month or for a 2-year period and you're going to pay a certain amount of rent. That's fine. But just be very careful about contracts that you make with family, because if it's for money, that's one thing. You can make a contract with family. You can make a contract with anybody. If there is an offer and there is consideration for the offer and there's consent to the offer, all that's fine. He says you could live here for a couple of years, but you're going to pay me $24,000 over the course of 2 years for rent. Well, that's a contract, and that there are definable terms in that, and it's enforceable in any courts, regardless of what your family relationship is to that person. It's just a weird dynamic. I don't know. What do you think about that, Chris? You're moving into this person that you just divorced into your in-laws' house, and you're paying them money. What is that? Does that come on? Do you get any red flags from this setup?
And so she has an 8-year-old child?
8-year-old child. She wants him to be there till he's 10.
I mean, there's not a problem with that, but if she does have the opportunity, the credit, and the ability, like a pre-approval with, and can make an offer that's that competes with other offers and get any type of, even a 1-bedroom, well, I mean, or whatever, she should do that.
Well,
That's
the
in
thing
her best
is,
interest.
here's my concern from a family law perspective. So I don't know if there's going to be a custody or visitation fight between her and her ex-husband. But in the event that there is, in one of the parameters to that, or one of his arguments, is that I should have full custody of my son because she doesn't have stable housing. She's literally living with my or with my father on charity, and he can't afford to let her keep that place. In other words, if it's like, hey, he could be pulling in $4,000 a month in rent, and he has this deal with her where she's only paying him $800 a month. He can't financially hold up to that, and so he's going to have to get rid of her eventually, and therefore she's going to be homeless. I need to have full custody of my son. He can make an argument like that, and then she's going to have to have. Well, I've seen it happen many times. That's often an argument.
Living there on charity, and he wants to introduce a lease contract, and he's going for full custody. It's a plot.
Look, if he's going to enter into a written agreement where he's going to give you an offer for rent that is below fair market value for that facility, and it's in writing, and he signs it and you sign it, it's a binding contract. So it's not really an argument to make. And then if he tries to kick you out, you're going to have various other legal recourses to fight against him if that's a concern. I mean, that's one part of it. Yeah. And so, look, if you're going to do something like that and it's between family, don't make the mistake of saying, oh, yeah, you could just stay here as long as you want, and you don't have the offer in writing. Here's what's going to happen. In the United States, generally, specifically in the state of California, when you don't have a contract with definable terms, or for example, you have a contract that should be in writing, but it isn't in writing, or it's only enforceable if it's in writing, but you two have been behaving as if you have a contract, the court is going to look to fill in the gaps. And one of the ways they're going to do that is like, well, how much are you paying for rent? Well, I don't know. It's just kind of an agreement between the two of us. Like, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. What is the fair market value of that unit? And then it's going to be a certain amount. And they're going to be like, it's unconscionable to suggest that this person could charge $4,000 a month of rental income to any other person, and they're going to just give it to you for $1,000 a month. And what rule does that make sense? He's got to earn a living too.
You got to look at the receipts. So obviously you shouldn't be paying by cash. I mean, she's not.
Yeah.
She's smarter than that.
Keep that in writing.
So she's giving $400, and then the next month it's going to be $500, and then the next month maybe you skip, and then it's going to be $800. That's just, I mean.
No, you got to have defined terms.
Yeah, yeah.
So write up a full lease.
Yes, that's proper. That's proper. Correct. Yep.
Have it be for 24 months.
Protects both parties.
Have every month create a specific amount due to the landlord, who's going to be your father-in-law. And if you want to do that, then fine. I mean, if you're okay with that family dynamic, I mean, I'm assuming you have a good relationship with father-in-law. I'm not asking too many questions.
Do we know how much that he agreed to charge her? Is it
no, and it doesn't
value, or is it?
It doesn't really matter.
That's a big thing.
Yeah, it only matters. So the dollar amounts are not important. What's important is, and whether you might have a potential for future trouble, is if he's letting her stay there for far below fair market value, and you don't have that agreement in writing. So all she really has to do to protect herself is make sure whatever the agreement is, get it in writing. Have an attorney drop a base contract. You could do that pretty cheap, a couple $100 or whatever, and make it be a legit lease. Like, if I don't pay this money, he could evict me. Or as long as I'm paying this amount, then I could stay here legally. Because you could do that wherever. And if it is an agreement like that, where he's trying to help you out, where he's letting you stay there below fair market value, as long as it's in writing, you should be fine. But if you don't have it in writing, then, there's so many bad things that can happen. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. But that's my advice to her. Just whatever you're going to do, if you're going to do something like that, fine, do it in writing. Let's move on to the next one. So this next person is looking for, what is my advice to have an amicable divorce? And so I have a lot to say on that topic, but here's what she's going through. So I'm in the process of separating. We're not married, from my significant other of 10 years and father of 10 and my father of children. This is poorly written. From my significant other of 10 years and father of my children, is what she's trying to say. It started off quite emotional and very upsetting, but we seem to have worked our way through a lot of anger and are now both on the same page that we are just not right for each other, but are still actually good friends. I guess I don't understand what she's asking me about an amicable divorce for if they're not actually married. They've just been together for like 10 years. But I will continue. He hasn't moved out yet, but we agree that it will be him that goes, probably when lockdown has eased a little. I'm just hoping to get some advice from people who've gone through this so we can do our best to keep it amicable. Not just for the kids, but that's a big enough motivation, but also because I really want him to still be my friend at the end of all of this. In hindsight, part of the reason we got together and stayed together was a mutual feeling of loneliness in the world. Like two...
Okay, it seems like she's asking too much.
No, I don't think she's
still
asking
be
too
the
much.
best friend.
You could be
and-
amicable with somebody
well,
that you...
maybe. Well, we're talking about platonically, but like it seems like she might be asking too much. It's like
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't have experience in this realm, but you know, things are going to change. She has to accept that. You know, I mean, you're splitting, which you know, I guess you guys should just focus on the kids. Maybe that's the answer. If you guys can, yeah, I think that would make both of them happy. I'm assuming if they're both, their goal is to keep the kids safe, happy, and the best thing for the kids, they're going to stay friends.
Well, I'll tell you
If she's
this.
yeah.
Whenever you're divorcing somebody or you're getting out of this long arrangement and there's children involved, you can be amicable, but that requires a great deal of maturity on both sides. Here's what normally happens. Like 99% of the time when people get divorced, there are these severe feelings of hurt that you have to contend with that usually color the lens through which you view your ex-husband or wife. And then that colors how you treat them in a co-parenting relationship. And, you know, and really that's the only time that you really have to continue to communicate with each other. Because if you get a divorce and divide the assets, you have no reason to talk to them ever again. But when you have kids, you're kind of stuck with that person for the next 18 years or until your child turns 18 or you no longer have children that are of minor age. So that can be done. But the only way that you can possibly do that is if you get over all of the bad feelings that you have towards each other. Now, this is her speaking. And she's saying that everything is fine. And then she says this interesting statement at the very end. Part of the reason we got together and stayed together was a mutual feeling of loneliness in the world. Like two fish bowls, two fishes swimming in the... How's that song? What's that song? What am I thinking of? Dominic, what's that song? Two goldfish swimming in the fish bowl year after year. It'll come to me. Dominic will put it up on the...
What the hell are you listening to?
it's an older song. Who sung that song?
I'm telling you.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if she's asking too much or not. I don't know what his perspective is. They're in the process of separating.
I'll tell you why she's asking too much. I'll tell you why. Because if the relationship, if they're going to split up, they're splitting up. Her loneliness theory is out the window. If they're going to split up, they're splitting up.
Yeah.
If it's not based on the kids, then when she gets a boyfriend or he gets a boyfriend or whatever the hell, when jealousy sets in, that friendship is doomed. At least, you know, there's the hurt. So you have to have the homeostasis of it's about the kids. Not make it about the two, because you guys are splitting up. You can't have it both ways.
Well, listen to what she says. She says, they start off quite emotional and very upsetting, but we seem to have worked our way through a lot of anger and are now both. So there's clearly some anger and stuff. I don't know from his perspective if he was with her because he was lonely. She might have been she might have been his forever person, you know? And now she's trying to chalk it up. Oh, the only reason I was with him is because I was lonely. You're so right. She might be delusional in that degree. but she clearly says that things were emotional at the beginning, very upsetting. We both have worked our way through a lot of anger. I don't know what that anger comes from, but we are now both on the same page and that we're just not right for each other. And we're still actually good friends. If they're good friends, all right. I don't know what good friends means. Does it mean like like she's friend zoning him, or they're both friend zoning each other? Because the way that she describes it, I suspect that she's the one that wanted this divorce, and he's kind of going along with it because this is what she wants, and he's tried to get her back together, and there's been a lot of back and forth between the two of them, and now he's kind of just acquiescing to, you know what, I'm just gonna, fine, but we could still be friends. And so maybe does he still have designs on getting back together with her, or is this just her imagination that he's just okay with this setup? There's a lot of unanswered questions here, but I'll just say this.
If she wants to be friends, if she wants to end up as friends, when you break up, I'm friends with all my exes, but there has to be.
I am not friends with all my exes. Well, good for you on that.
There has to be a cool off period, and then you can be friends. So you're not going to make it through that period unless you focus just on the kids. You will land on friends, but don't think that that there's not going to be this yearning and sadness. He's not going to be there to talk to you over your loneliness that no, you can't have it all. Look, if you're going to divorce, make it about the kids. You'll end up as friends.
Well, I'll tell you what.
That's why I say,
if you want it to be amicable, the only real way to do that is you have to get rid of all romantic notions. And then it has to be on both sides. It can't be like every time he comes to pick up the kids, he's like talking to you about your life. Because as soon as you get like a boyfriend, or as soon as he gets a girlfriend, if there's like unresolved feelings between the two of them, that's going to interfere with the co-parenting relationship. And now we're not looking at something that's amicable for the sake of the kids. Now we're looking at, reintroducing broken, hurt feelings between the two of them. And I'm just going to assume that he probably has designs.
What type of rejection that the kids feel after that when they realize that the parent was only there for the other parent, they were never there for the kids?
Well, that's a big part of it, isn't it? That's and that's why a lot of family courts say that, hey, we're going to do this in the best interest of the children. And there's sometimes like these orders that they'll put in that, look, you're not to talk negatively about the other parent. You're not to call the other parent for anything other than reasons involving the children. Because what happens, I see a lot of these cases, they'll use the exchanges to establish communication with the other parent or with the mom. They're trying to get back together, ask them about who they're dating, try to get into their personal life and all that kind of stuff. And when exactly what you just said happens, the children end up feeling rejected because it's like, so the only reason you're picking me up because you're trying to get back with mom or you're trying to get back with dad. And so I'm just like,
or they stop because they get jealous, and then they realize it was never about me. It was you were, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's no there's nothing amicable about a situation like that. And so, for this young lady, I would just say that, look, I feel like she's looking at this very optimistically, and that's good and all, but she also has to look at it realistically. Her interpretation of the relationship, I 100% guarantee you, does not match his interpretation of the relationship. And the fact that they're still friends, that's not really a common thing. Like you could have a cooling down period and all that kind of stuff when there's no attachment, there's no children or whatever, and you like find each other years after the fact, or like you said, you're friends now or whatever.
Word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just talking about being like, cordial and, you still have love for them, but yeah, you just.
Well, I can tell you this, that there is no relationship I have with any ex out there in the world of mine where I'm just going to be friendly and like have like a normal communication with them, because number one, it's not appropriate. And number two, you've shared that space together and it didn't work out. And so what's there left to talk about? I don't need to be your buddy. I'm 43 years old. I got enough friends in my life. I don't need to add a ex-girlfriend A, B, C, or D to the list of friends. Same goes with ex-boyfriends or whatever. There's no reason to carry on unless you have children and you have to. And when you resume a relationship like that, and it's not about the children, It's just so easy for lines to get blurred and for that to confuse everybody, not just the parties involved, but the children, the current significant others. It's all bad. And so her question was this: how do I keep it amicable? Keep it 100% about the children
Don't
and
make it
about
about
nothing else.
yourself.
Yeah. Don't ask him about his personal life. Don't tell him about your personal life. He doesn't need to know about boyfriends, whatever, new love interest. You don't need to know about his. Inevitably, you may decide or have designs on getting remarried to somebody. That's inevitable. And in that case, then fine, you bring it up then. But you shouldn't be regularly talking about your private life to this person. They no longer share that space with you. And deciding to go into that area is just asking for trouble. You're asking for the opposite of an amicable separation. You're asking for a heavily litigated custody and visitation trial is what you're asking for. Because that's going to be like, hey, I don't want my children being around this guy. He's got a criminal record. And, my children told me some things about she's scared of him and all this kind of stuff. And now we have to explore whether or not this new person, this who is probably completely innocent, we have to just litigate whether or not he's actually a danger to the children or somehow counter to their well-being. It gets really ugly really fast if you want to play it that way. So proceed with caution and you don't need to be friends with this guy. You got kids together. You can't be friends. Not the same way that you used to be. He's not your buddy. You guys have shared fluids together. You guys literally have these children together. You made people together. There is no world where you're going to have this platonic relationship and expect everything to be amicable. It's not. And so that's what I have to say to this young lady. Do you got anything to add, Chris?
Nope.
Before I get too
Nope, that's
dramatic with it?
basically No, it's correct. Sorry, it's not the answer that I think that maybe she was searching for. There's a way to have everything, but you can't.
Well, I'm not
Look,
here
if
to
you're
tell
gonna
her
get
what she wants to
divorced, get a
hear.
divorce.
I'm here to tell her what she needs to hear, because this is what I do, and this is what people pay me a lot of money for. This other one, and we're going to end with this, but he wants to know whether or not he should reconcile or divorce with his wife. And he wrote me a book. So I'm probably not going to read the whole thing, but let's just get the background. So he says he's looking for sincere advice about whether reconcile or divorce. And he says that I'm a 43-year-old married man to a 39-year-old woman for the past 11 years. Hey, he's my age. Been together for 14 years. We got a couple of kids, 8 and 5. We are both successful professionals. We work hard, make good money, and are active in our community. Our friends jokingly call us the power couple. Nobody calls you that, dude. Neither of us will have trouble getting dates if we break up.
Yep.
On December 1st, I discovered that my wife was having an affair that began in early November. Although the affair was brief, it was intense and spiraling out of control when I stopped it. My wife fell hard for her affair partner, and there is almost no possibility that they would have ended it themselves until their relationship ran its course. She was infatuated with him on the road to falling in love. Her affair partner is also married with children. My wife and I are best friends with another couple, who in turn are also close friends or neighbors with the affair partner and his wife. And as a result, we would often hang out with affair partner and his wife when visiting our mutual friends. My wife and affair partner always had an intense mutual attraction, but they behaved appropriately around each other, so I never picked up on it. So right off the bat, my advice to this guy is 100% divorce, run from the hills. She, just off the basis of how he even knows all of that, lets me believe that this is like some weird cuck relationship that was born about her admission.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
That she's having an affair and he's just cool with that.
Right.
if my wife told me something like that, I'm already in the mountains. It's just like, well, good luck with all of that. I will cut you a check. I will be so far gone because she has zero respect for this guy. I don't know how he found out about the attraction between the two of them being that strong. I feel like that must have come from her mouth.
Or maybe he logged into her tablet, was hooked up to her iMessage.
Yeah, but most normal people that they found out that way, they don't talk this civilly. It almost feels like he's enjoying typing this out as I'm reading it. But let me just. All right, so he talks about these.
Reconcile or divorce. Did they have kids? The 43 and 39?
10 and 8. Oh no, I'm sorry, 8 and 5. 8 and 5. So
the other couple has kids also. Shoot.
Yeah, it's this whole weird, like it feels like this weird Hollywood couple dynamic where it's like this weird sex thing. I don't know, Chris.
The kids are friends
what do you think
too.
About that?
I wouldn't know much about that, but
shit.
Unless one of the families moves, I would say get a divorce. If a family moves, I mean, you've been married for 14 years.
Together for 14, married for 11.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's good.
But before you continue with your answer, we need to have all the information. So he writes in detail about 5 separate encounters between his wife and her affair partner. He talks about them crossing boundaries. He says, my work is fairly cushy about 75% of the time, but it's all consuming and miserable about 25% of the time. These periods are difficult for my wife because she works hard herself and essentially becomes a single mom when I am in the grind. I was going through one of these difficult patches at work in October, November. I had just returned home from a week-long work trip across the country, and we visited our best friends, the couple who are also friends or neighbors with a affair partner and his wife. I went to bed early that night because I was exhausted from a difficult week of work. Everyone else stayed up drinking, and several people got into the hot tub where a affair partner crossed boundaries with my wife. AP secretly rubbed my wife's crotch. This actively lasted about 5 minutes until my wife got out of the hot tub. The transgressive and clandestine nature of it must have thrilled them. You see how he's writing, though? Like, this is not a guy that found out his wife is cheating on him. Like, he has indulged in this story. He's like writing it like a novel. And so we
don't know his tone. He could be like mad about it, like stewing too, but maybe he did. Maybe he's liking it. Yeah.
All right. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. And there's nothing wrong if you want to, if this is your thing. He doesn't appear to be all that upset about it is all. Okay. So encounter number 2 at a hotel bar. At the hotel bar, a affair partner apologized to my wife for his inappropriate behavior. When she assured him that she was not offended, he proposed an affair. Affair partner noted that he and my wife were well matched because they both had a lot to lose, presumably a reference to their respective families. My wife agreed to an affair. They spent the next 30 minutes making out. How does he know that is my question. Unless she told him or he's making it up. Encounters 3 and 4 were in a hotel.
Sorry, I masturbated you in the spa, but would you like to have an affair? Was that the conversation?
Well, it's just saying that, hey, we both don't have a lot to lose, and so might as well have an affair. And she says, all right. And then they make out for 30 minutes. Encounters 3 and 4 were in a hotel. You could use your imagination on that one. Encounter 5 is in our vacation home. We had a vacation home about an hour and a half away. That is my happy place. It is peaceful and comfortable with a romantic vibe. I understand with my wife thought to invite AP there, though this decision is itself a betrayal. Like many vacation homes, we have a smart lock that allows us to open the door remotely for contractors or visitors, but it also keeps record of whenever the door opens, including whether the door opens from the inside or outside. We have a Ring camera. My wife said she wanted a big day by herself at our vacation home. Reasonable request, given that she was essentially a single parent. However, something about this trip was off. Even if I couldn't explain it, this was the first time I sensed anything amiss. However, I reassured myself and wondered why my wife was playing tricks on me. Then I realized that she disabled the Ring camera upon arrival, and that's when I panicked. My kid has an iPad. He uses it for homework. This iPad is linked to my wife's Apple account, meaning it contains information from her phone. This allowed me to access her search history and discovered that 2 nights earlier she searched best sex albums 2 weeks before that, she searched for best quiet bars, and she even explored how much rooms cost when the hotel bar was located. I only realized she was having an affair when I saw this search history. I noticed on the app connected to the smart lock of my vacation house that my wife opened the door, and then he goes into details. So, all right, 5 separate encounters that he knows about. Confrontation. My wife comes home the next day and is genuinely warm and loving. I can see in her eyes she was happy to see me. I remained stunned and confused and desperately hoping there was some misunderstanding. I noticed that her work calendar had a hold until 12:30 the previous day, coinciding with somebody potentially leaving at 12:35. Late that night, I got up and accessed her phone. I got into her WhatsApp, where I noticed a series of calls between her and AP, including some just before 10:11, presumably when she gave him directions to our vacation house. That is how I learned AP was the third party. I woke up my wife and confronted her at 2 a.m. on Friday, December 1st. She admitted everything. Though she minimized the depth of her feelings for AP, she originally told me that she did not really care for him and planned to break it off the following week. All right, so aftermath, I gave my wife through the weekend to conclude things with AP and then cease communication, to which she agreed. I told her if she communicated again, I would leave her. We both started weekly individual counseling as well as weekly marriage counseling. We are both reading Getting Past the Affair, required reading for anyone in our situation. We also hired lawyers to negotiate a postnuptial agreement, fair to both parties. That's a good idea, actually. The postnuptial process proved stressful. On December 14th, my wife called AP from her office and talked to him for 5 minutes, seeking his advice regarding the postnuptial. AP is a smart guy, though hardly a financial analyst, so her calling him for advice was a pretext for emotional connection and perhaps disclosure. Okay. He goes on to talk about earlier infidelity. He talks about the marriage context, and then he writes a conclusion. So I'm an optimistic person by nature. I'm grateful for the many blessings life has afforded me, starting with health for me and my family. My kids must always be my top priority. As the child of divorced parents, I hope to spare my children that what I endured. Although my wife betrayed me, I feel like I failed. I resent my wife for putting me in a situation in which I must prioritize my children because she neglected to consider them a stunning lapse from an otherwise great mom. I dislike all my options moving forward. Aside from the notable lies regarding calling her a fair partner in mid-December, my wife has otherwise embraced reconciliation. I need to decide whether to reconcile or divorce. I don't know, Chris. What do you think I'm going to say?
What does she want? Well, I mean, honestly, it does sound like it's pretty dang over, but I mean, it's probably genuine that he does not want to do that to his kid, be another divorced family. But what does she want? Because without her, whatever, it doesn't matter what he wants. If she's still in love with this guy, which they're best friends, their kids are probably best friends or play or whatever. They're going on all these trips, they've been on this long thing. She's cheated before, and who knows what he's done. This is one side. It's hard to say without what she says, assuming that she is still, will say anything right now, but she still has the hots for this guy. It seems it's hard to pry this family even apart, which is more messy. It seems like their whole life is established around their best friends, which, wow, I don't know about this one, man. This one's tough.
I don't know, Dominic. What do you think I'm going to say? Oh, you could just shout it out. They know you're not on mic.
They definitely need a divorce. Yeah, break that off almost instantly.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's. What does it look like if he stays with her? Chris, Dominic, let me just ask you this question: is there any world where you can foresee that this lady has any modicum of respect for her husband going forward?
No.
I would see that the behavior would repeat itself. She
don't respect him.
I would think.
She's gone through all of these details with her, either at his request, because he just sounds like a cuck, or I don't know, but there's something weird about how this guy has phrased everything and about his ability to just kind of just justify a lot of his wife's interaction. Look, if you were a man who values yourself as the protector of your family, then part of the thing that you're protecting the family from is infidelities, both on your own part and from your wife. And if your wife has not only crossed those boundaries, but had 5 separate encounters that you are aware of, and she's told you all about it, about how she was so excited about, and the attraction was so strong, and she's tried to justify it to you, whatever, and you go back as the man and the protector in that relationship dynamic, whatever you think of gender roles, if the man goes back and just says, you know what, it's okay, it's fine, we'll all stay a family and everything's going to be fine, then there's no chance in hell that she's ever going to respect you as a man of value such that she doesn't have to worry about what she does. You're always going to be there because you're a cuck. And in that dynamic,
for the money, I don't know anything about her.
She's a successful professional. She has her own money. She doesn't need his money is what it sounds like. She's not worried about, she's willing to sign a post-nuptial agreement, meaning she's not looking for his money. She's got her own, so good for her. But if he's expecting her to be this doting, loyal wife, she's already not that. And so screw it. You got the post-nup, leave. The children will get over. They're old enough. They'll be fine. But if you think that there is a world where she's all of a sudden going to be this loyal wife, which is clearly what he's looking for, that is never going to cheat on him, that is, going to remain faithful no matter what and be this wonderful mom. She could be a good mom without being faithful to you, clearly. And the fact that he's not even taking it more serious is red flag number one. Maybe this is all this subtle plan where he just wanted her to think that everything was going to be okay, where he gets her to sign this post-nup where they get to walk away with their own property that's in their names. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. But if he genuinely believes that there is any scenario where she has any shred of respect for this man going forward, no matter what happens, because it's one of two separate scenarios. It's either this. Either she says that, you know what? I got away with that. And he was so understanding about it. I guess there really aren't any consequences to me going out and screwing around. And then she continues to do the same thing, probably with the same guy, maybe with somebody else. Because she's going to be going through her midlife crisis at 39, 40, 42, 45, whatever it is. And if she wants to explore that, she wants the openness to do that, you've clearly not given her any consequences for it. And she doesn't respect you enough to honor your wishes. Or number two, let's say she tries to stay faithful to this guy. She really does, but can she ever really look at him the same way as like the man that's supposed to be protector and the shepherd of the family, knowing that he allowed her to get away with such things without any consequence? Because most men that are worth anything will say, the hell with that. There's no chance. Look, hey, I have value. And if you're going to do something like that, you're not good enough for me. So I'll get over it. You do you. And I'm going to move on and do me. And we'll still raise the kids and all that, but I owe nothing to you. That's what most strong men in that scenario would say. They want to be expounding through this mountain of literature about all of her 5 different encounters that he knew, about how she was so infatuated with him. And, maybe that's his way of getting through it, but he's putting it out there with the world for the world to see. And asking, hey, all of this stuff in detail about what he's been through and all of the things that his wife went through with her affair partner. How could she possibly look at him as the strong man that she is desiring that protects the family if he's willing to give in all of that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if there's no respect.
Here's the advice.
All right, let's hear your advice.
Okay, so even if those families separate, if he can't stomach her doing it again, then get a divorce. If you can, and you got to ask yourself if you can, and it sounds like he's looking for us to say reconcile, or you to say reconcile.
Yeah.
If you can stomach it, don't bring it up again, and keep on living your happy life and just assume it's happening.
Yeah. And
That's
it's going to be one of those, oh, I stay together for the kids. But then it's going to be basically become like an open relationship. Well, she's doing her thing. I'll do my thing. If you want to do something like that, then fine. Have an open relationship with her. Just say, look, I'm going to stay together because I don't want to break up the family unit and what we have going on. But you do your thing. Just know that I'm going to do my thing. You can try to do that. Fine. See how long that lasts. It's not realistic because it almost never works out. But you try to go into it.
We don't know the statistics on that. We don't know what goes on behind.
I can tell you, I don't know the statistics. I can just tell you I can tell you from doing family law for 10 years that people that have tried to do the open relationship thing, almost inevitably, it ends up badly. Those are usually the cases, like 50% of the time. These are my statistics from my own cases. It ends up in some kind of domestic violence situation. It ends up in somebody in therapy. It ends up in orders that the children go to therapy because of all the crazy stuff that their parents are doing and putting them through. It's never pretty. Does it work sometimes? Yeah, sure it does. But in those cases, it's like, look, we're going to do this until our children turn 18 and then we're going to get divorced. But it's never like with the hope of, oh, we're going to live happily ever after. And so the bonds have already been broken. She either never had any respect for you or she's never going to have respect for you going forward. Either way, your value as a man to her is substantially small. And what she desires is clearly not you. It's dipshit affair partner over there. And if it's not him, it's going to be some other guy that resembles the tenor of some guy that she's dreamed up or seen in the movies or seen in whatever is her fascination at the time. But it ain't you, buddy.
Or maybe she just needs more. Maybe she just needs a variety, and that's just it. If you could deal with it, then deal with it.
Yeah.
But if you really can't, then yes, you got to get a divorce.
Clearly this guy can't because, he talks about boundaries and things, and he's not talking about, oh, well, maybe I'll go explore my affair partner or whoever, some other girl. He's not talking that way. He's talking like, oh, she's doing all these things and she's going through stuff and I can understand. I just need to know if I should forgive her or not. The answer is you could forgive, but you can't forget about all of these things. He wrote in such detail and so poetically about all of the sexual encounters she's had with this guy, and on at least 5 occasions that you described in great detail. Literally, he wrote like an 1,800-word essay on this topic. And then I'm supposed to pretend like you're just supposed to say, oh, yeah, no, forgive her, take her back. It's going to be completely fine. The way that you describe it, it's like she's over there having an affair with freaking Brad Pitt, or I don't know, who's the guy? Some guy that, and she's all about it. She's having like all of these, I don't know, she's having the time of her life over there. The reality is this, man. Reality is harsh. For a guy like you.
You're right. He did describe like that it's exciting to do things when you think people aren't looking. Like he kind of excused all of her actions in a way. So he's probably, he's almost already geared to just, I don't know.
Those don't sound like his excuses. It sounds like her excuses that he just bought into.
Yeah, excuse for her. Excusing for her. Like, oh, yes, this was exciting. Of course you couldn't resist temptation, but of course everybody can.
Yeah, and people do.
Just don't do it.
All the time. And so it's not a real marriage, not in the sense that most people mean. If you want to change the rules and say that, look, you go do your thing, I'll do mine, and we just won't talk about it, then sure, try that. Fine. You got a post-nuptial agreement. So I'm just going to assume that what that means is you guys have decided how to split the assets and you're good with it and she's good with it. And so let's just assume that that's okay. That means you could do whatever you want with impunity. That also gives her no incentive to stay with you or to be faithful to you because you've already forgiven her. You're going to forgive her again because you're a pushover. And most women don't like pushovers, or they like them, but they will push them over when given the opportunity. And if you're one of those, then hey, lots of luck to you, but do not expect, if you're not willing to stand on your own business, if you're not willing to stand up for yourself and demand loyalty from your partner, that she's just going to give that to you freely And the fact that you've already let her off the hook and that we're even having this conversation now, if you think for a second that you're going to turn around and just pretend like everything didn't happen and she's going to be this loyal, dutiful wife to you going forward, you are delusional, my friend. And so my advice to you is no, you don't reconcile unless you're going to change the rules. And if the rules is anything other than like, yeah, go explore whatever affair partners you want, but I'm going to do my thing and you're not going to ask me about it. That is a business relationship that you both can get behind, and fine. It'll be amicable. Fine. Do that. But if you're going to reintroduce the bounds of marriage with this in the background, good luck with that. I'll see you in my office in about 6 months. Is what I would say to this guy. So I'm going to conclude Family Law After Dark on that note, that very positive note. I don't know. Closing thoughts on that one. What do you think, Chris?
I mean, to each their own. I mean, if it does work for some people, yeah, I mean, you got to just be honest with your partner. Just be honest about your desires and your needs, because if you're not, then eventually down the line, 11 years later or however long, this is going to come out. So yeah, just
it'll come out and
be honest with yourself if you can accept it or not. Don't just be like, oh yeah, I can, knowing damn well that you can't.
And I don't know, man, maybe it's just his thing. Maybe he likes to know that his wife is out there being with other men and he gets off on it. There's people out there like that in the world. If that's his thing, then fine. But he's the one over here asking for loyalty. And so I advise him accordingly. If that's what you're looking for, then there's certain prerequisites to that she's not meeting.
Like, dude, if you want if you want loyalty, then you got to redefine loyalty in your definition book, because you're not going to get it here. So if you're okay with it, fine, stay. If you're not, no.
Yes, sir. I agree with that. What do you think about that, Dominic?
Same thing both of you guys said.
Dominic's like, he's like 25 years old, trying to say, yeah, what you said. Well, I've been speaking now for about 2 hours. I think it's time to wrap this show up. For all of you that have stuck around for this long through not only our candid discussion on Christopher Watts, but this further candid discussion on Family Law After Dark. Thank you so much. There are big things happening for the show. We are continuing to grow. We're continuing to gain subscribers. We've been approached by a couple of different sponsors. That might be coming, that might turn into a thing. We will see, but there are big things happening over here on this end. And I look forward to exploring what that's going to look like. And for all of you that have been with me from the beginning and continue to ride on this train, well, there's not a crash in sight. We're going to continue to ascend as long as you continue to tune in. And so with that, and on that note, we will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.